How many of you have seen Mr. Bean, 1997, right, rolling, right? I wanted to do the scene where he goes in and, right, he gets on the roller coaster and he's like falling asleep and everybody's having fun, and then he goes and he cranks it up to a zillion and people are like flying everywhere. But as he turns to his partner and he goes, brace yourself, right? And I kind of feel that's like what this is here today. I do want to say this, and I think most of the kids left, but there will be things in this presentation of a sexual nature. So if you don't want your kids to hear it, you've been forewarned. All right. Let's see if this thing works here. Lovely title. And I will say this. This is going to be a lot of stuff. I'm sorry that it's so heavy. That's kind of the nature of what it is. It's going to be a really academic or seem really academic in nature. Just stick with me here. Hopefully by the end I'll pull it together and it'll actually be purposeful, useful, and something that you can take and apply to not only your real lives, but specifically how you read the Bible. Okay? All right, so we'll get into all this. The B'nai Elohim, the Nephilim, the future sons of God. Hopefully by the end of that you'll understand my title. I did like 57 revisions of this. Not really sure what was the best one to kind of get the point across, but I think I settled on a good one at like 10 o'clock last night. So some assumptions first. Oh no, I had a fun time doing it. This is a culmination, and the B'nai Elohim, I heard about this 50, yeah, I'm not that old, 15 years ago, right? And I was just interested in it beyond all reason. And this is kind of the culmination of seeing it from multiple presenters, multiple ways, and them really showing, hey, this is what's in the text. And before we get started, I think we need to talk about a few assumptions here. Number one, the Bible will not hurt anybody who reads it. And this is probably the worst one because we will skim over passages because we think like we can't handle it. Somebody will think something wrong about God. God's character can be called into question, this and that and the third, okay? So hopefully I'll dispel a lot of this today and just realize the Bible isn't going to hurt you if you actually go through the whole process, okay? It will reveal to you the creator of the universe. He inspired it. It's here because he wanted it to be here, and it's here to help us along the way, all right? Number two, and this is going to make some people mad in some fringe, but that's okay. The Bible should be read like a novel, okay? And I say a novel not because it's not true per se. I say a novel because when you read a novel, everything is placed by the author for a purpose. It's not there by accident. It's not there because somebody had bad pizza 6,000 years ago. It's not there because somebody had a bad dream. It's not there because of gastrointestinal issues. It's there because the author cognitively put thought into it and put it there. And here's the issue. They had a perspective 6,000 years ago, right? Let me illustrate. I'm going to tell you a story. We'll see how many of you get it. I have a feeling some people will, but most of you probably won't, okay? And then I'll reveal to you the context, and then it'll all make sense, right? Okay, so there's this guy. He sees two masked men at his home. So he runs a little ways, and he looks behind him, and he turns left, and he keeps running, and he turns left again, and he keeps running, and he turns left again and he keeps running. He's hoping these masked men won't be waiting for him, but when he gets back home, there are two masked men waiting for him. What's going on? But we know what you were doing. Now, if I put a picture of a baseball diamond up here, would that make sense? Context is everything. If you don't know the context, how can you possibly derive meaning from a text? Okay? You can't in its fullness. Okay? So, what I'm trying to get us to do is I'm trying to get us to look at the Bible like a what's called Second Temple Jewish person would, because there was a context behind everything they thought and everything that they did. Now, I'm not saying that it's right and we should follow it, right? Most of them didn't recognize that Jesus was the Messiah. Problem, right? However, there is good stuff there for us, okay? The Bible is not a textbook. It is not a spell book, a source. We cannot just go to it, X plus Y equals Z, especially in the Hebrew language. Hebrew language is messy, okay? It's messy. It's not precise. The Hebrew scholars are shaking their heads. They know, right? It's something that can be interpreted multiple ways. So what I'm going to say, even though I might say, like, this is how it is, I'm just offering you a perspective. Maybe it's helpful to look at the Bible like this, okay? You all get to make up your own minds. I can't force you to, okay? The Bible was written for us, but it was not written to us, okay? I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Here's my favorite one. The weird parts and the boring parts are all important, and they all have a purpose. I have some really boring passages of Scripture in here. And when I read it through a different lens, I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. My wife's telling me I need to hurry up. Yeah, for real. I'm at 45 minutes. We're going to cut it off. Okay? To receive everything the Bible and consequently God has for us, we have to approach this text from the mindset of the author's intended audience, aka we're going to try to get into the minds of Jewish people around the turn of the eras. Okay? So, next thing. This is just me. I say this every time I speak. You have homework. You need to go home and you need to prove that everything I said was true or a lie. And you got to do it for yourself. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you don't, get in the game. Right? Get in the game. Maybe not get your own oil, but the Bereans were great. The Bereans just sat, they listened to everything Paul said, they did it politely, and then when they went back to their homes, they said, we'll see if this guy's full of it or not, and they looked at everything he said. For everybody out there, this presentation was huge. I'm not going to bring it up a lot at the size of this, but most of it's scripture, and we're just going to read right through it. That's why there's going to be so many slides. But I posted it on TLC's Facebook page. You can get it. You can look it up. There might be some spelling errors. I'm a math teacher, so spelling ain't my thing. That's why we invented spell check. Okay? But most of it is good. It will definitely give you references that you can go and check out all this on your own. Okay? All right, so how many gods exist? Ooh, getting right to the heathen part. How many gods exist? I guarantee you if we did a survey, 1 in 3 would be the most popular answers, right? Because we're good Christian kids. We went through Sunday school. We know, right? In the Hebrew context, this question doesn't make any sense, okay? And let me illustrate it with some Bible verses. I'll do this first. My kid was playing with this at our soccer game yesterday. This is how much this stuff has changed how I look at the Bible. You know, it's a pretty coloring page. It says, Jesus, Son of the Most High, he will be great, and Luke 132, he will be great and called Son of the Most High. Why is God called the Most High? Because he needs a higher pedestal than God if he's the only one? How about this one? First commandment. We all know this, right? We can probably name off all 10. You shall have no other gods before me. Why would he say that if he's the only one? Is he giving wordplay? What is he doing? Why is he saying that? Why did he just bring these people out of Egypt where he just put to shame 10 Egyptian gods in a row? There's more than one and what we're going to call Elohim. That's the Hebrew word for it. Let's see if I can get there. Yeah, what does the Bible say? We'll go past that. All right, so Elohim. If you actually went and looked up, and this is what I do for fun, so you guys can pity me later and invite me over to parties. All right? When you read something in your Bible, it's been translated, right? They didn't write it in English, shocker, right? They wrote it in what? Greek, Hebrew, and a lot of times the oldest documents we have were Hebrew translated into Greek. So you're reading someone else's interpretation of what the text really says. Now, granted, they're pretty smart, so they can usually give us most of it in proper form, but sometimes there's things that we disagree on, okay? This is one of those really maddening Hebrew words. It can mean a ruler or a judge, and human ruler or judge, okay? It can mean a divine one. It can mean an angel. It can mean God's plural. It can mean God singular, okay? It is a word that's used in multiple ways and multiple fashions. So when we go to a passage like this, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We translate that as a singular God, right? Guess what it is in Hebrew? It's plural. Now, as a good Christian, we take that to mean what? It's the Trinity, right? That's an easy one. But there are passages that are not so easy for things that Elohim mean. Like, for instance, let's talk about Psalm 89. Let the heavens praise your wonders, O Lord. And by the way, I'm going to read a lot of this, so that way hopefully you remember some of the good stuff of what God said and less of what I said. Okay? Praise your wonders, O Lord, your faithfulness in the assembly of the holy ones. Guess what holy ones is translated? Elohim. So, God, you're going to praise your name in the assembly of just the three of you hanging out? I mean, they do complement each other, but I think that's a little far-fetched. They probably have better things to do, right? For who in the skies can be compared to the Lord? Who among the heavenly beings is like the Lord? Heavenly beings. I don't think God's going to refer to the Holy Spirit or his Son as just a mere heavenly being. Once again, translated Elohim. There's more going on in this realm that we can't see than meets the eye, right? A God greatly to be feared in the council of the holy ones. O Lord, God of hosts, who is mighty among you, right? And here's the whole purpose. There is a family out there of Elohim. They existed before we did. They all have different functions. Angel doesn't mean, oh, a person with wings, white robe, blonde curly hair, right? The usual depiction. Angel is a title. Like if I said, you're a sergeant, that's a rank, right? That's not who you are. But it does describe your function. Angel describes a function as a messenger. They are people that usually carry messages back and forth. And believe it or not, Jesus Christ actually got the title angel for certain things that he said and did, all right? It's about their function. It's not about who they are or what kind of species they are. There's other types, right? The other angel we're most familiar with in the Bible is who? Lucifer, right? The fallen one. What was his job title? He was a cherubim, okay? Now, and this is one of the hard things for us to get around. Cherubim were like the guardians of the throne room, okay? So if you would like go over to Babylon and you would check out everything, and they have the gates and the splendor and all these statues and this and that. They have these big, honking, strong dudes, buff, ripped across the chest. Like if you come in here any hanky-panky, you're going to die. And that was the message they wanted to send, right? Satan was one of these cherubim. He was a protector and defender of the throne or of the Holy of Holies. That was his job. Hence why he got in trouble, right? Because when he wanted to be the object of adoration that he was guarding, a problem, right? Big problem. Oh, here's my favorite one. This is kind of Jewish humor, all right? So Ahab, right, most evil king in Israel. And I'm hopping around a little bit trying to illustrate where Elohim is used, okay? So Ahab and Jehoshaphat, right? Jehoshaphat was the king of Judah. Ahab was the king of Israel, right? And they're getting together, and Ahab's like, hey, I want to go fight the Syrian king. Will you come with me? And Jehoshaphat's like, well, let's see what the prophets have to say. So Ahab's like, sure. He brings in all his prophets. They're like, oh, go. You'll win. You'll destroy them. You'll slaughter them. And Jehoshaphat's kind of like, do you have any prophets of Yahweh? I don't want to hear what Baal has to say. So he's like, and I condensed it down a little bit, but this is pretty good. Ahab goes, we have one of those, but I don't listen to him. And Jehoshaphat's like, why? And Ahab goes, because he never says anything good about me. So Jehoshaphat said, go get him anyway. So they go to prison and get Micaiah out, okay? And Micaiah comes and he says this. He says, therefore, hear the word of the Lord. And I'm going to read this how I read it. I think Micaiah is sarcastic as ever because he's baiting him, okay? And I think God's baiting Ahab too. And that's just me. That's not, this should be our thing. This is what I personally think is going on, all right? Hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne and all the host of heaven standing beside him, right? So all the families together, and they're talking. They're having a council session, right? Or maybe like we're doing. Maybe they're having church. I don't know. Okay? Sitting beside him on his right hand and on his left. And the Lord said, who will entice Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? That's where they're going to go fight here. Okay? And one said one thing and another said another, right? So they're giving suggestions. And God's like, that's okay, but I think we have a better idea here. I want you to notice something about God. Does God know what the best thing is at this point? Obviously. What is he doing? I'm going to throw this out there. Justinism, I can't prove it, but man, I can give you a lot of evidence. God doesn't do anything in the heavenly realms without an Elohim to partner with him. God doesn't do anything in the earthly realms without a human to partner with. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. There are some weaknesses in my argument. That's okay. But that's what I've come to believe is the honest truth, right? And we'll see this smattered throughout today, okay? And then a spirit came forward and said, I will entice him. And the Lord said, by what means? And he said, I will go and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, you should go entice him and you will succeed. So go and do so. So basically, Micaiah is calling out every single prophet there saying, yeah, they're trying to get you killed. Well, guess how the story ends. Ahab goes, and Ahab even takes Micaiah's advice because he doesn't dress like a king on the battlefield. He dresses like a regular charioteer, and he gets killed. So much so that they thought Jehoshaphat was King Ahab, and they tried to take him out. He survived, Ahab did not. Another use for the word Elohim, just a lowly spirit, had a good idea, and God was like, yes, we're going to do that. Now, here's the weirdest one. Samuel 1:28. This is pretty apropos considering it's Halloween. Ghostbusters just came out, right? So Saul kind of, and we're jumping around again, so we're going back in time a little bit before David is king, right? And Saul's coming to his end, right? The Philistines are gathering, Saul's gathering his army, and Saul's getting really nervous, and he wants God's advice, right? So he calls his guys together and he says, who can inquire of the spirits for me? And they're like, you killed everybody that does that. Remember, God told you to get rid of them. Because he really wanted Samuel. That's who he wanted. Samuel spurned him. God spurned him, cut him off for a very specific reason, which we're actually going to get to in a little bit. Okay? But they said there's a medium at Endor. So for you Star Wars people, there it's in the Bible. All right? Saul disguised himself and put on outer garments and went, and he had 2 men with him. And when he came to the woman by night, he said, divine for me a spirit and bring up for me whomever I shall name for you. Okay, apparently she had this skill. And I realize there's a lot of theological debate, like this might be a demon, this might be something else. I'm going to do this. Unless I have a reason to allegorize this or make this into some kind of metaphor, I don't know. I'm just going to take it at face value for what it is, okay? Even though it's weird. And we're going to have to take a lot of stuff today at face value, even though it's weird, to take this story forward, okay? So, sorry, I went too far. And she said, surely you know that Saul has done. He's basically condemned us all. And he says, yes, I know. No punishment will come to you. And she goes, who shall I bring up for you? Bring up Samuel for me. When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice, "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul." And did I get them out of order? Oh, no, I didn't. And the king said to her, "Do not be afraid. What do you see?" And the woman said to Saul, "I see a God coming up out of the earth." Guess what God is translated as from in the original Hebrew? It's an Elohim. Can it mean God the Father? Sure. Can it mean spirit? Sure. Can it mean perhaps ghost? Maybe. The thing is, it's not precise. Okay? It is not precise. Okay? Saul obviously knew who it was. What did he do? He bowed down. He thought it was Samuel. And he and Samuel discussed that he's going to die tomorrow. Right? And it's just a terrible experience for him. And that's what this basically goes on and says. I won't bore you with that. You can read it all. But here's the point. God wants a family. And that's not even true. God doesn't want a family. God wants multiple families. He had a family of Elohim. He wanted more. Our God is a creative God. He's never content. And we tell this to our girls all the time. Love grows. It can't stay contained. It always has to expand and get bigger and bigger and bigger. He wasn't content with one family. He wanted another family. Did he need another one? No. Did he get another one? Yes, because God gets what he wants. If you disagree with that, we might need to talk afterwards. Right? Here's the painful part for God when you think about it from his perspective. God has witnessed multiple rebellions within those families. If I were to ask you what's wrong with the earth, a lot of people in here would say a story about Eve, an apple, and a snake, right? That's not exactly true. That's part of it. Not denying that. But there's more to the story than that. Okay? So let's check this out here. Sorry, it's a little hard to read. But I'll go through this. Let me see if I can find where I am. All right, so Eden. We're familiar with Eden. Who was involved? Humans and this thing called a nakash. We translate it as serpent. Guess what it can be translated as? Dragon. Dragon. Where have I heard dragon in the Bible before? You go to Revelation, you hear a lot about a dragon. That's why John wrote it like that, because he didn't see a snake that could talk with legs. And it's really interesting if you follow this trail, and I had to calm myself down and not follow this trail here, but in Chinese mythology, what's their most venerated being? The dragon. Disney just came out with a movie. What's it about? Dragons. It's steeped into our mythology, okay? And in a lot of cases, the Hebrew context is completely opposite of the context of other cultures, right? In Chinese, dragons are good for the most part, right? And who does the Chinese dragon usually fight in the end? A tiger. Guess what they don't have in China? Lions. Why would a dragon fight a lion? I wonder where I've heard that one before. Right? The Lion of the tribe of Judah slaying the dragon in the end. It's hard to make this stuff up. And I'm just connecting dots here. I'm not really suggesting anything outside of that. There's other rebellions, though, and we know from the garden, right? The land was cursed. And here's the most interesting part. It created a Lord of the dead. God is the God of what? The living. And Jesus said it, right? The Pharisees tried to trick him. Hey, if so-and-so married so-and-so and they remarried so-and-so and remarried so-and-so, who are they going to be married to in heaven? And Jesus said, God's not the God of the dead. He's the God of the living. Why did he say that? It wasn't because he was making a point about from death to life. That's how we read it. What was he saying? He's saying Satan is the God of the dead. And that's what he did in the garden. He bought himself a kingdom because we're all spiritually dead, right? We have to be brought to life. That's where he's the Lord of the living, okay? Now, there are other things here. Genesis 6. We're going to tackle this one today. That's the first rebellion. we're going to tackle rebellion number 2 today, and that has to deal with the flood, okay? So the world pre-flood, there are what's called the sons of God, and then there's daughters of men. And we're going to get into that, okay? And what happened? These sons of God knew, and we're talking the biblical knew, the daughters of men, right? So they procreated. Their offspring were these biological hybrids called Nephilim. That's all the Bible says about it. Nephilim is only mentioned 2 times in Scripture. However, we'll see that's not exactly true. It's weaved into other places as well, okay? Consequences. What does God do with this rebellion? He floods the earth. Why? To destroy the Nephilim and all their influences, okay? It was that serious. God had to destroy that which he loved to wipe everything out and basically start over, okay? He imprisons these fallen sons of God in what's called the abyss. Okay, and if you read Revelation, there's an abyss in Revelation. I'm going to try to stay away from the end time stuff. I could spend all day there, but third rebellion, Babel. We'll get to this one next week. Humans, the Nephilim are back. The sons of God are back. This is round 3. Okay, and what actually happened here was, and we kind of think, oh, Babel, that's cute. That's where we get all the languages of the earth. No. That's not what's happening here. Not what's happening at all. We don't see the context. We don't get the story, okay? What's happening here is humans are refusing to follow Yahweh's leadership. And like God normally does, when we continuously, obstinately defy him, he usually gives us what we want as an object lesson. And that's what happened. You don't want me to be your God? I'll give you another God, and we'll see how that works out. And that's exactly what happened, okay? So what did he do? He divided the world into nations. Gave each a different tongue. That's usually what goes along with the story, right? But he divided the nations, and he assigned an Elohim to be the governor, or how should I say it in a more biblical term, the steward of that nation, right? And God expected them to lead well, okay? That's where we get this one piece, and let me go back here. Taylor, you might need to help me. I know I skipped over one, but it is good. Psalm 82. And by the way, this is one that's enlightened a lot of scholars throughout the years. God has taken his place in the divine council, right? The Elohim, in the midst of the other gods, and he holds judgment. And he says, how long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? He's saying that to other gods. Why? Because of Babel. They're in charge of a specific geographic location. Okay? You're sons of God, sons of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, like men, you shall die. Pretty fierce, pronounced judgment, right? And fall like any prince. Arise, O God, and judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations. And like I said, we'll get to that more next time, but God's not happy with some people that were in his family, right? And here's the thing we need to see. In any war, there's always, right, good guys, bad guys, depending on which side you're on, of course, right? And there's always bystanders. There's always people that aren't part of the fight, but they're always caught up in the fight, right? Imagine if you lived in France in 1944. How do you feel? You're 4 years into Nazi occupation. You're just trying to survive and provide for your family, right? Are you a part of the war? Not really. Has the war affected you? Absolutely. And that's what's going on right now. We are in the middle of a spiritual war. We are the bystanders. But the thing is, we're the prize with which is being fought over. Because just think about it. If you're Satan, you know you've lost. You know you can't win. What's the next best thing you do besides try to win? You burn the forest. Right? You destroy everything that makes God happy, because what is better than bringing other people into your own misery, right? Misery loves company. That's what he's trying to do. That's the end game, okay? All right, so let's get into this flood story. All right, here's what the Bible says. And this, by the way, all of this is from the English Standard Version, okay? It's pretty faithful to the text. It also has a lot of things from our Dead Sea Scrolls discovery in it. Now, why is that important? Because Dead Sea Scrolls are usually the oldest versions of documents we found, so we can kind of see how translators throughout the years have historically interpreted words and phrases. Okay? That's the only reason why I say that. When men began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw the daughters of men and that they were attractive. So they took as their wives any they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards. We'll get to that part. When sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men of old, the men of renown. I like the thing, and I couldn't put this in, it was just too long, but there's actually, Jewish people have their Torah, right? And they have writings about the Torah, and they have writings of the Torah. And in one of those writings, Lamech, Noah's father, supposedly has this conversation with his wife about, hey, this kid that was just born, he's really mine, isn't he? He's not one of these guys, right? And it's kind of a Jewish funny thing, like, ha, 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 the kid, and you don't even know it's yours. But that's their way of kind of getting around the issue. And this makes it sound all nice. Who says these human women actually said, yeah? One of our favorite bands in college was called Incubus. Guess what Incubus literally means? Demon who has sex with human women. There's also a succubus, by the way, for those of you who want equal opportunity. And there's obviously a female demon that stakes, and all of this is occultic stuff, right? But why is it there? What was the origination of the story? I'm suggesting that. Okay? Now, when the Jewish people kind of pulled together this Bible, was there a lot of writings of Moses? Absolutely. That's why he's usually ascribed authorship of all first 5 books of the Bible. However, anybody who reads it, point blank, you have to understand Moses didn't put it all together. He couldn't. He talks about his own death at the end of the book. It's kind of hard to write that, right? So somebody obviously put things together and edited it for him, right? So we would have it, okay? I think there's some editing going on here, because think about this. The Jewish people put together their Bible when they were in Babylon, right? Oh, our temple just got destroyed. Our nation just got ruined. What are we trying to hold on to of our culture? And the Bible was the thing. So that's when the whole, I don't want to say Sanhedrin, but what is it when they meet on Saturday? No, the Jewish people. Synagogue. That's when synagogue came to be, right? Because they were trying to preserve their culture. That's when writing this stuff down and preserving it, and that's when the Jewish people actually made their Bible formally, right? Now, when you're in Mesopotamia, right, back then, you have stories, right? You have stories about Gilgamesh and Marduk and this and that, and I won't bore you with it, but here's the point. In the Babylonian stories, guess who the good guys are? The fallen angels. They're called the Apkallu. They come down and they enlighten man, and they give Babylon all this great stuff to make them great. Well, you give us all this great stuff. What did they give us? Here's the best thing that I can come up with, and we'll get back to Nephilim and all of that. Come on. My daughter's like, you put Maui on this slide? I want to stay in and listen to this. No. All right, this is called, it's not even from the Apocrypha. It's from what's called pseudo books, a.k.a. this person didn't write them, okay, but their name kind of gets attributed to it. Like, if I were to write a movie or make a movie about Abraham Lincoln, did Abraham Lincoln write the movie? No, right? But it's named after him probably because he's the main character, okay? This is an extra canonical text. It's not, and I would be uncomfortable with saying that it is inspired, so don't read it like you read your Bible. But here's what I want you to realize. If you're a Second Temple Jew, do you read stuff other than the Bible? I hope so. Right? Do everybody here, do you read things that aren't the Bible? I know y'all do. I see Facebook. Right? right? We read stuff that's outside of the Bible and we pull it into our worldview. This is a book that is referenced in the New Testament at least 2 times, probably more if you're willing to be gracious about it, okay? So they were reading it. They interpreted their worldview through it, okay? And I just want to read a piece of it. It's going to sound a lot like Genesis 6, right? And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied in those days, were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels of the children of heaven saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose wives from amongst the children of men, and begat us children. And Semjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed. So he was getting cold feet because he thought they all wouldn't follow him and do this. Okay? And I think I alone shall have to pay the penalty of this great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us swear an oath and bind ourselves by mutual imprecations. By the way, that's curse. I had to look that up. That's why I put that there. Okay? It was a curse. They bound themselves by a curse. By the way, this is important for later. All right? Not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. And they swore together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations and upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared. By the way, Jared, that's where you get that whole line of Adam begot so-and-so and lived so-and-so years and begot so-and-so and lived so-and-so years. Jared, if you look at his name, it literally means God came. It literally means God came. They knew these beings came down, and some guy named his kid after that. It's fantastic, right? Where did this happen? It happened traditionally on the summit of Mount Hermon. Okay, Mount Hermon is in Syria right now, and that's going to be location non grata in a little bit here. Okay? But that's what's happening in text outside of the Bible. They read this, they pulled upon this, and it is in their thinking. Okay? If it's in their thinking, whether it's true or not, we at least have to acknowledge that and put it in our thinking. Okay? All right. Let's go back here. I want to check out some things because there is multiple ways to look at this, right? Nephilim, it's only in the Bible twice, so Numbers 13:33. By the way, that's where the spies come back and say, oh, we can't take the land. There's Nephilim in there, right? Okay, that's the only other place it's mentioned. It literally means a feller, a bully, or a tyrant, a giant. Here's another interesting thing I found about Nephilim. The constellation Orion is traditionally seen as a Nephilim in the sky. The hunter, and all throughout Genesis, they talk about great hunters. Just connecting dots here. You can take what you want from it, okay? By the way, at the bottom it also says they are fallers, they are rebels, they are apostate, okay? All language that we hear where else in the Torah? We hear it in the law, right? Could it be that parts of the law were put there just because of these people? I'm suggesting absolutely. Specifically all the places about sexual sin, because what was their sin? It was sexual in nature. And we're going to go through certain stories and look at it and maybe reinvent what exactly is going on here using this information, okay? Now, there are other interpretations. The most popular one's the Sethite line. I heard it in Bible college. I guarantee you, Moody, they heard it at Bible college, right? And this is, the sons of Cain were the were the daughters of men, and everybody from Seth's line were the sons of God. There's a couple big problems with that, okay? I'm not saying it's not a legitimate theory, but there are a couple problems with that. First off, it makes all the girls bad and all the guys good. So right there, I lost 50% of my audience for this. That's cool because I do not subscribe to this, but that's okay, right? Okay? Also, it doesn't make any sense as you continue to go through the story because now sons of God can mean, it can mean humans, it can mean Elohim. It starts to get almost too smattered even for Hebrew, okay? So, I'm going to go back to the assumptions. I'm just going to read the text as it is, even if it's weird, and follow it to its logical conclusion, okay? There's also always the allegorical view. You can throw this in anywhere. However, big problem with this, when do you actually start to take things as true? For instance, I can allegorize the whole Bible, but then there's no cross, no remission of sin, no nothing. Where's the line drawn? When you do things in allegory, that's the problem. You can never tell when it's cool to hop back out of allegory and when you hop back into it. Now, a lot of people are saying, but how do you, this stuff in the Bible isn't literal. That's very true. I will agree with that wholeheartedly. What's the easiest way to communicate something to somebody? Metaphor through story. Exactly. Why do you think Jesus told parables? Right? If he would have given a textbook, it would have been real boring, and then you would have something like this. Right? Right? He told through stories, metaphor, and think about it. We think default that it's easier to say literal things and that communicates the message. That's not true. Even in our conversations, and I snooped in a couple this morning, people were dropping metaphor and idiom left and right to try to convey a point. Why do we do that? Because we try to convey our points in the least amount of words possible, right? We try to do it as efficiently as possible. My wife usually shakes her head at that one, right? But that's what we do, okay? Especially guys, we're guilty of that, probably too much so, okay? How do Jewish people look at this? Here's a traditional Jewish exegesis. Exegesis is quite simply, for the layman, how you read through scriptures, okay? And they have, of course, a acronym that goes with it. I always think of San Diego, shout out, right? It's not Padres, it's Pardes, okay? The Peshat. This is the, and this is important to know about how they translate their Bible. Nothing further down the list trumped anything above, okay? So the straightforward meaning of the text remains true. Even if it seems like the lower levels are making it not true, it's still true. There's just more digging that you have to do, okay? So Peshat means the straightforward, explicit meaning. I refrain from putting literal because that brings connotations into our mind, all right? There's Remez. Remez literally means hint. Okay? There's a lot of hints being dropped in our Bible. It can be the alluded to meaning, and it can also mean reading in between the lines. Not to use a metaphor to try to explain it, but it was the easiest way. All right? Darash, this is where we get our sermon idea from, right? Because we're taking ideas and we're forming them together and we're using them to make new ideas of what we should do. And then there's the Sod, which is where we get the esoteric stuff, aka like Kabbalah, right, or Gnosticism. And the whole thing behind that is there are some people that are the keeper of the secrets, right? It's not Jesus' way. He wants everybody to know the secrets, okay? So, Nephilim are demigods. We have demigods, Hercules. I had to find a picture where Hercules was fully clothed. Holy smokes. It's crazy, right? This guy over here in the tan, that's Achilles, right? Arrow in the heel. Demigod, supposedly invincible. Everybody's like, why wasn't Brad Pitt up there? Perseus and Medusa, right? Medusa, the Gorgon, women with snake hair, right? And we think, oh, yeah, that's myth. Is it? Is it? We have dragons in the garden. Is it that far-fetched to have a woman with dragoness snake hair going around pillaging and plundering? Or maybe she was one of the good guys. I don't know. Okay? We even have modern versions of this. And you guys are like, what? Who's that over there on the left? My girl, or right. My girls would die right now. It's Wonder Woman. Who's her dad? Zeus. And of course, Maui up top, right? He's a demigod. It's inculcated our culture. I have more over there if, for the video game people. Kratos from God of War. He's a demigod. Okay? Percy Jackson, popular children's book. Eli would be freaking out now. He's a demigod. Okay? Where did we get this idea from? Yeah, and it's not just one culture. It's like every culture. Every single culture has these. Why do they have them? I want to point out one more thing here. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. God flooded it, wiped most of them out. Okay, there's some other interesting things about that, but we'll get to that next week. Here's the freaky phrase, and also afterward. The rebellion happened again. Again. You want to talk about God trying to keep his family together? Not a happy camper. Here's where some of them come up again. Deuteronomy 2. And the Lord said, do not harass Moab or contend with them in battle, for I will not give you any of their land as a possession, because I have given Ar to the people of Lot for a possession. Okay? I put all of this in there because I want you to see this. God is going to say, you cannot touch these people. And some people he's going to say, you need to completely annihilate these people. And here's the issue. God's character is being called into question on a daily basis because of that. How can God allow for genocide of certain people and not others? What kind of God does that? Well, let's check it out. Let's read further. The Amim formerly lived there, a people great and many, as tall as the Anakim. Well, who are the Anakim? And I'm highlighting all of these because we're going to go look at the definitions here in a second. Okay? Like the Anakim, they were counted as Rephaim, and the Moabites called them Amim, Horites, right? So there's all these names of people going on here. Oh, we'll get back to the map later. And we'll get back to that later. Oh, there's more Horites. All right, so the Amim, they were terrors. Ancient inhabitants of Moab, there's where they're listed. We're going to get to Genesis 14 here because there's an important event that happens with that, okay? They're known as terrors, so called from the terror that they caused their worshipers, okay? And if we go and we'll look at pictures of some architecture in Moab, it's quite big for some reason, okay? I'm going to suggest they're giants. Anakim. Long-necked, a tribe of giants descended of Anak, and they dwelt in southern Canaan. And you're going to notice something about all these giant clans. Where did they all just happen to make their home? Here's a Justinism. I think they happened to make their home around what they knew was where the Garden of Eden was, because they knew God was trying to set up camp there. Just my thought. Can't prove it, but I think that's what's going on. Okay? And by the way, we mimic this today. We mimic it today. Why do people do that? Because the gods did that and looked like that. Okay? The Horim, the cave dwellers. I like this one. The Egyptians have massive, massive amounts of papyrus and stone because of their fights with the troglodytes. Well, who were the troglodytes? They just lived in caves. Yeah, they lived in caves too in Bible times, right? These people lived where Esau went to live. And what happened was God gave this great-grandchild of Lot, right? And the great-grandchild of, and there were two great-grandchilds of Lot's. They each drove out their own Nephilim. And it said God drove them out from before them. Esau, after he left Jacob alone and went his own way, he went and he fought giants. If you subscribe to, hey, the Bible's actually trying to give you something, actually what it says. Okay? And not to drop this too early, but in Jewish thinking, demons aren't angels. They aren't fallen angels. They're the spirit of these Nephilim that have no place to go. Because they can't go, right? They can't go to the underworld and stay. Even though some Jewish texts do have them coming from the underworld, they certainly can't go be with Yahweh, right? They're an abomination to him. Okay? Right? What's this? Indiana Jones fans? This is Petra, right? I chose these two pictures out of hundreds. Why? Look at how tall those people are. Look at how tall the temple is. You tell me you took time to build a door that tall and you can fit through it a long time ago? Forget that. Right? It was built for a reason. It was built for a reason. And by the way, that is in Edom. all right, ancient Edom. So that was the Horites. That's where somebody lived. Okay. Let's get on to another story, Genesis 18. All right, so Genesis 18, this starts the Sodom and Gomorrah epic, right? And we think, oh, Sodom and Gomorrah, that's where God just burned up a city because of homosexuality, right? That's usually how the story goes. Is that all that's happening here? Well, check this out. The Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, and he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. Now, this is interesting because it says he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. If 3 guys are standing in front of you, are you going to do what he does next? And he bowed himself to the earth. I realize Semitic culture is hospitable, but they're not that hospitable. In the chapter before, Abram didn't even bow to the kings that he rescued, right? He had to go rescue Lot from them. We're going to get to that in a second, right? But he didn't even bow to, I forget his name. Melchizedek, yeah. He didn't bow to Melchizedek, who was supposedly the priest of the Most High God. He didn't even bow to him. Now, he gave him a tenth of the stuff, but it doesn't say he bowed down. Why are these people so important? Because they're not men. Abraham could tell they're Elohim, right? And that's important contextually as we move on, okay? Here we are in 19. Right? The 2 angels proceed into the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. All right? And there should be... Oh, there we go. Nope. Oh, I must have deleted the first part. Anyways, so they come to the city. Lot's at the gates, which is good for Lot, right? He's pretty important. If you're at the gates, you're an important person because you handle judgment and such. Lot's there. He immediately recognizes them, and what does Lot do? Guess what? He bows down too. You don't just bow down to strangers in this culture. He knows they're angels. Word gets around the city they're angels. So what does the populace come and do? They say, hey, bring these guys out so that we can come out and know them. Right? Euphemism intended. This stuff is going on again. Nephilim. It's in people's minds. And by the way, it's not just the sexual sin. The Nephilim taught us how to destroy ourselves quicker. We talk about how, wow, the Bronze and the Iron Age came really quickly after we discovered human beings. Gee, why do you think that is? Because if you teach people that are prone to goof up to kill each other quicker, what will they do? Kill each other quicker? Right? They taught them about, and this is back in Enoch, they taught them about roots and herbs and drugs and medication and this and that. Anything to keep them from doing what Yahweh instructed them to do. Right? If they can't have the forest, they're going to burn the forest. And that's exactly what they're doing. Now, this is a test in my thought process, right? Because what did God promise right after he flooded the earth? I will not flood the earth again. Okay, we'll see about that, right? That's why they're doing this, okay? At least the fallen angels and the Nephilim from that standpoint. What's God going to do next? Cleanses it with fire. I'm going to suggest to you, and here's how I sleep at night. I don't think anybody in that city who was an actual human and did not have blood or Nephilim DNA, if I can even go there scientifically, I don't think anybody that was completely human was killed. I think the 4 people that weren't got out. And that's the whole point of God and Abraham haggling in the previous chapter. Because Abraham keeps talking about if there are 50 righteous, and we read that as, if there are 50 people who do the right thing. You can interpret it differently. Are there 50 people who have the right bloodline? And they refer to Noah like that back in Genesis 6. It wasn't that Noah was righteous because he always did what was perfect, right? Even though Noah was a righteous man, Noah had a pure bloodline. That's why 8 people survived. Was it really that prevalent? I don't know. But I think it could be. I think that's well within the realm of possibility. Okay? Let's keep moving on. I don't know what I did there. Let's go back here to Genesis 14. Do I have it? Sorry, I'm out of order here, guys. Oh, here we go. All right, in the days of this, Chedorlaomer, right? He's a king from Elam, all right? So that's over where Babylon is. He gets mad because some people that are in his territory, right, are rebelling. So he comes and does what any king does, right? You fight them, you kill everybody who rebels, and you conquer the rest, right? Okay. Well, check this out. Who are the people who rebelled? The Rephaim, the Zuzim, the Emim. Familiar names, right? Those are the giants. They're the ones who rebelled. And it's interesting because there's the Horites, but the Amalekites and the Amorites were also part of that crew. Now, there's no giant clans that are named there. However, why are they named? Because when you get to Exodus 17 and you see what God, or what happens and what God pronounces on these people, it's so you realize, man, that wasn't as harsh as it was supposed to be, because maybe, just maybe, these people aren't people. Okay? Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. I looked and looked to see if there was any linguistic link. There is not. It's just interesting that Rephaim and they fought at Rephidim. Okay? So Moses told Joshua, choose men, go and fight with Amalek tomorrow. And this is the episode where, right, he holds the staff up. And when his arms get tired, people have to hold it up. Because whenever the staff's up, Israel wins. Whenever the staff falls, Israel loses. Right? Okay. So Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and the people with the sword. And the Lord said to Moses, write this as a memorial in the book and recite it in the ears of Joshua. I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. God isn't trying to kill people here. God is doing battle with Elohim in the spiritual realms that are doing things that just aren't part of the game plan, right? It's a war. What are they trying to do? They're trying to get soldiers, right? Every country has that when you go to war. Who's going to fight and what are they going to shoot, right? That's basically how it goes. So who's going to fight? Wow, if we have more of these people, hey, we can at least put up a good fight and make this last longer than it should. Oh, wait, I gave away the enemy's game plan. Uh-oh. They're trying to make it last longer than it should, okay? Close on time here. Yeah, we'll go through that. We already did Deuteronomy 2. Oh, Joshua 11, right? Okay. So everybody gets, right? They do their thing. They're destroying these tribes of giants. There's King Og of Bashan. We're going to get to that because Bashan happens to be in a geographic location where Mount Hermon is. Okay? And that's important because Jesus is going to come along and he's going to do some things. And we're kind of like, yeah, whatever. Jesus does whatever he does. He's the Son of God. No, he does it for a very specific purpose. Okay? And Joshua's going through, and here's what they did. They basically annihilated all these cities. Okay? They talk about a Hazor here. Hazor is very close to Mount Hermon, by the way. So they're just going through and wiping out swaths of, I'm going to say hybrids, not even people, right? They're just wiping them out. Every man struck by the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them, and they did not leave any who breathed. It seems really merciless. But if you have cockroaches that are invading your house, what do? You take drastic measures, and God is taking drastic measures here, okay? And it won't even be done yet. We have to finish the episode. It gets finished with King David, right? Just as the Lord has commanded Moses his servant, so Moses commanded Joshua, and Joshua did it. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord commanded Moses. Why did I highlight that? It has nothing to do with giants, right? But Joshua was brave enough to follow the Lord's instructions to the T. And if there's anything I want anybody of us to get out of today, are we willing enough and obedient enough and courageous enough to follow God's instructions to the T? Not saying God's asking us to kill anybody, right? But he is asking us to do things that are countercultural, against the grain, right? Joshua came at that time and he cut off the Anakim. There they are again, from the hill country, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and from the hill country in Judah, and from all the hill country in Israel. And Joshua devoted them to destruction with their cities. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod did some remain. Gath. We've heard of that one before, right? It's the most famous children's story ever, right? Little guy slays the giant. We love to talk about it in our sports metaphors, right? Most important part of the King David story, when he ran to the battle line, he picked up a certain amount of ammunition. What did he pick up and how many? He picked up 5 stones. Why 5 stones? There's 5 giants left. He killed one on that day, and if you go through the story, keep going through Samuel, right? And I pick up here where his men actually start going and fighting these giants and eradicating what's left, right? There was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number. He was also a descendant of the giants, right? And that he was the last one. Interesting little side note I found in my research. We like to make fun of this because of, Hollywood, and I'm not trying to insult Native American heritage, but whenever they would go and say hello, what did they do? How? Why? Why'd they do that? To make Hollywood look good? No. They were looking to see how many fingers you had on each hand. Because they have stories of fighting 6-fingered and 6-toed creatures. So, like I said, just trying to connect dots here. All right, let's get to the good stuff. What does Jesus do with this? Here's probably one of the most boring pieces of Scripture, unless you're a Jew, right? Because it proves Jesus' kingship. Guess what's not in a genealogy for most kings? Girls. Girls aren't in genealogies, right? They're just not. This is Jesus' genealogy. What's in there? 4 of them. There's 4 of them. And I'm going to suggest this. These 4 are in Jesus' genealogy because they have had something done to them sexually that was improper, or they were Gentile. All of them. Rahab was a prostitute in a city of Nephilim. Right? Ruth was a Gentile. Bathsheba. Nothing like taking a bath and having the king creep on you, right? And then, of course, Tamar. Tamar's probably the most unfamiliar one. Tamar married one of Judah, Jacob's sons. She married one of his sons, and he died. And she went through the process of marrying the brother so that she could have offspring, so that she could perpetuate the line of her original husband. All of them died, not having any kids. So she went and had to sit alongside of the road, and she dressed up like a prostitute to trap Judah to giving her a baby. God used all of these in the lineage of his son. That would be a no-no in the ancient world. We don't have prostitutes. We don't have this. We don't have, shall I say, bastards, right? That's what they were whispering in Bethlehem, or Nazareth, right? It wasn't nice. It wasn't reserved and respectful. And note the play on words here, right? I'm talking about the sons of God, right? Procreating with human women. What comes next in the story? The angel Gabriel goes to Mary and says, the Holy Spirit will overtake you. I've heard this story before, right? It almost sounds like Jesus is one of them as well. But there's one thing that sets him apart. He doesn't come to equip us with weapons and knowledge to destroy us. He comes to equip us with weapons and knowledge to save us. Okay? Weapons and knowledge to save us, right? By the way, Gabriel's an angel. I happen to think Gabriel's pretty high up in the family line, right? He gets God's most important assignments because he's trustworthy. He won't go and check out some girl on the roof, right? And make a dumb choice. He's very trustworthy, right? And we know the story. By the way, in our Bible, it's translated very poorly. Oh, you should call him Jesus. No, we're not calling him Jesus. His name's Yeshua. Why? Why Yeshua? Because Yeshua would point any good Jew back to the person who was originally named Yeshua, who was Joshua. And what was Joshua's job? Cleanse the giants. Cleanse the giants. Jesus is here to reverse that sin, reverse that curse. Remember back in Enoch, how they gathered together on the mountain and they made a curse bond together. Jesus knows that, right? And there it goes, nothing is impossible with God, right? Oh, we're going to get to this now? I want to go to Hermon, but that's okay. We'll skip to this one, Matthew 4. Matthew 4 is the temptation of Jesus, right? And we all know the story. Make rocks into bread? No. Takes him to the temple. Throw yourself off. Angels will catch you? No. He takes him to a very high mountain. This is a topographical map of Israel. The more red it is, the higher it is. Where's the highest point? It's on, and sorry I had to cut it in half. I couldn't reorient the TV, but right? The highest point's up there above the Sea of Galilee, right? And that really dark red on the portion of the map to the left, right? There's where Mount Hermon is. Where did Satan take him? There's speculation. The Bible doesn't tell us. I'm quite content to think he took me up to Mount Hermon. Because when he showed me the nations of the world, think about this. If Babel is true, every Elohim is responsible for a nation. They all were there, and Satan goes, look at these. You can rule it all. Which, by the way, was the first offer Satan made to be Antichrist. Jesus turned him down, right? But that's not all that Jesus does with Mount Hermon, right? They go to this place called Caesarea Philippi, and we'll get into this more next week. Caesarea Philippi was known as the place where you could go to the underworld. It's said to have the mouth of hell there. Okay? Guess what's really close to the mouth of hell? Mount Hermon. Right? And Baal literally means Lord of the Dead. Satan's, right, personifying this deity. In fact, the stories were probably written about him. Okay? This is one of his main places of operation. This is also one of the main places of operation of the fallen angels and the other gods, right? So, when Jesus is in Caesarea Philippi, guess what? When you look around when you're there, and I haven't been there, want to go, right? But Google is awesome. You can actually look at the street view and go to Caesarea Philippi. Guess what's the only place that's remotely higher than the other ones? Mount Hermon. So when they went up to a high mountain, and by the way, historically speaking, a lot of people say this is Mount Tabor. There's a reason for that, right? What's his name? Roman Emperor. Oh, Constantine, right? Constantine's mother-in-law thought herself an archaeologist, right? So she said, oh, it had to be Mount Tabor. Mount Tabor is nowhere close to Caesarea Philippi. That was like a 3-day journey. So unless there's a real gap in the story, which I realize there are, but it just doesn't line up, right? So 6 days, he led them up to a high mountain. He was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. This is an allusion to a lot of things, but the one I want to point out is, what does the word Lucifer mean? It means the shining one. Why is Jesus on Mount Hermon revealing himself as a shining one? Moreover, what's going on here? Moses and Elijah appeared to them, and they started talking with him. When's the last time that Elohim gathered on this mountain to talk? When they were making the curse. What are they talking about? I guarantee you they're talking about breaking the curse. Right? Also, another important part. God only speaks, pressing the wrong button. God only speaks verbally 3 times in the New Testament that we have written. Okay? And 2 of those times he says almost exactly the same thing. Both of them, when they say the same thing, were all related to the flood. We just don't even realize it. He says it here. This is my beloved son with whom I am well pleased. Please listen to him. I'm here to break the curse of the fallen ones. When's the other time he says it? He says it back here in Matthew 3 when he's baptized. Have you ever thought about why we get baptized? Why do we go, and we're supposed to go in the middle of a stream, right, or a river or whatever, and get dunked? Why? What is it signifying? I mean, really, can we link it together? I think we can. I think we can, because when you go under the water, what are you doing? You're drowning all those evil intuitions, the fleshly part of you. And when you come up, it said, you arise a new person. The old is gone and the new has come, right? It's signifying that. They started doing this after Babylon, where they were completely inculcated in the religion, right? Marduk and all the Apkallu are these great guys. No, they're not. They're the enemy, and you're making them out to be the hero. That's why baptism became a big thing after that experience for them. That's why we still do it today. We see it as a way to signify I'm following Jesus or I'm converting to a new religion, but the seeds go deeper than that. It's showing that I am not going to follow the way of the fallen ones. What am I going to do? I'm going to follow Yahweh. He is Lord of all. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Right? It's even more fun, but I think we'll have to save that till next week. Right? There's where, right? After Jesus did this, and by the way, does Jesus have to claim allegiance to himself? Absolutely not. Why did he do it? He did it to show us the way. He did it to show us the way. Okay? This is a great quote about baptism. The waters of the great flood, you made a sign of the waters of baptism that make an end to sin and a new beginning of goodness. There's another baptism in the Bible. Paul talks about it when they walked through the Red Sea. He said that was a spiritual baptism. Right? All of this kind of goes together in their minds, right? Remember, we're interpreting this like Hebrews do. She's done. I'm almost done too, kiddo. Here's what Peter said about baptism. Baptism corresponds to this. It saves you. It's not the removal of dirt. You don't need a bath. It's an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's what it's really doing. This is me. That's why I put it in green. Baptism is a symbol of the Spirit. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope. And God raising up a new person and a new spirit, a hybrid, a son of God. Right? When you're baptized, supposedly you get a new spirit. Right? You get a new spirit inside of you. You're becoming a hybrid. Now, it's not DNA, anything like that. You're still human. But God has put a seed inside of you that will grow, and in the end, you will get a new body. Why? Why does he want that? He had sons of God. Why does he need new ones? Oh, that's end times. We'll skip over that. Sons of God, children of God. In the Old Testament, that's the B'nai Elohim, right? That's the council. Guess what God wants? He wants a council of us. The saints, the believers, are exclusively referred to as the children or the sons of God in the New Testament. By the way, ladies, don't get offended by sons of God. Okay? Remember back then, sons got all the inheritance. You want the stuff. Okay? So it's okay. Remember, we have to be the bride of Christ, so we each get to swallow our own pills. Right? Okay? Paul says it best here, Romans 8. For you who are led by the Spirit are sons of God, for you did not receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father, right? The Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God. And if children, we are heirs, heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ, provided we suffer with him, that we also may be glorified with him. Unfortunately, the pause for the next verse on the screen ended there. Man, if it ended there, that'd be kind of rough to swallow, but Paul doesn't end there. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us. Right? For the creation waits and with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. We can't fix Eden's rebellion until we take care of the other two and the sons of God step forward to run the earth like they're supposed to and be a part of the council. That's what we're here for. You each will be in charge of a part of the new earth if you believe. If you put aside your allegiances to yourself, to this earth, to other gods, this and that, and if you believe, you're in. You're part of the family. Right? To all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to be called children of God. It's a title. So what now? What do we do? I know it was heavy. I know it was academic. If you knew what I was edited, you'd be proud. It will. It will. Which, by the way, we will do Q&A. Well, not Q&A. Q&D, right, after this. Also, Wednesday night, I'm going to get my family in here. My wife will be doing grad work, but we'll be here. If you guys want to come hang out, we can just discuss this, okay? And Father, questions? Yep, I have all that information there. They can just get the link. I'll send it to them, and they can run. Okay? What do we do now? One of my favorite verses from the Old Testament, Micah 6:8. What does the Lord require of you? Do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. See, it didn't change anything. It just changed how we looked at things, right? Here's one of the scariest verses in the Bible, I think. This is from 2 Peter 3. Since these things are thus to be dissolved, right? And he's talking about the end of the world, okay? What sort of people ought you to be in lives of holiness and godliness, right? He's basically saying just do the right thing, because in the end, that's all that's going to be left. Now, here's the scary part. Waiting for and hastening the coming of the day of God. Everybody who believes in the total destinative theory of God, like he is supreme over all. Remember, God does what? He partners with Elohim in the spiritual realm. He partners with humans on earth. If we don't partner with him in this, it actually prolongs the day when Jesus actually steps foot on earth again. That's why there's no date set, because we're not ready. When we're ready, the date's set. I know it's a reach for some of you. It's okay. We can disagree on that. That's fine. This isn't some kind of dogmatic thing. If you don't believe this, you're, not going to be with the family or anything like that. But I think if we read through the Bible like this, with this type of mindset, it at least gives us appreciation for why they said it. And at best, it shows us, wow, maybe God isn't the monster that some people paint him out to be. Right?